Hi, my name's Louise Rooney. Welcome to the Central Coast on Wamberal Beach, home of dark and young Doongi peoples. I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present and those emerging. Wamberal Beach, the site of significant coastal erosion.
In July 2020, an east coast low hit the central coast of New South Wales. It brought damaging winds, heavy rainfall and destructive surf conditions. These conditions had a major impact on beaches, particularly those at Wamberal and North Entrance, causing significant coastal erosion. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Similar events occurred in 1974, 1978 and again in 2016. After each episode, arguments arose over who was responsible and how they should fix the problem. Coastal erosion is a normal part of the coastal processes. It includes wave action, winds, tides, rips and currents. These natural forces continually shape coastline beaches and estuaries by moving sand from one place to another. This means coastal erosion is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a feature of the coastal environment's complex adaptive system. The process of sand movement by wave action and the impact of reducing wave energy is known as morphodynamics, a natural system that is self-sustaining and is recognised as a negative feedback loop. However, if wave action is increased, as might happen in front of a seawall, it can cause sand to be eroded, water depth to be increased, and creates a self-perpetuating cycle of destruction, or a positive feedback loop. So, to explain a bit further, the beach is the interface between land and waves, and the foredune sits just behind the beach. It acts as a buffer, protecting the rest of the coastal environment. In normal tidal activity, waves wash back down the beach. During a storm, there's increased wave action, but they wash over the foredune, which dissipates the wave energy and reduces damage to the rest of the coastal environment. However, building on the foredune can prevent this natural process occurring. During storms and east coast low weather systems, the disruption to the natural system can cause significant coastal erosion. At Wamberal, homes were built on the foredune, and we've seen them facing instability and collapse as a result of coastal erosion over several decades. Back during the storm event of 1974, residents along the Wamberal beach were given permission to protect their homes any way they could. Car bodies, building materials and tanks filled with concrete were dumped on the beach and covered with more concrete. When another storm hit in 1978, the waves hit this makeshift seawall, deflecting the wave energy to the houses at the end of the seawall. This event demonstrates a problem of seawalls. The same area of housing was affected during the East Coast low in July this year. Climate modelling predicts that while moderate East Coast lows will decrease in numbers, extreme East Coast lows, such as those experienced this year, will increase during warmer months. There's a general consensus among the scientific community that severe weather events are being worsened by climate change. However, weather systems are so complex, there's still ongoing discussion as to the exact extent that this is occurring. In these scenarios, some of the threats to the Socio system are obvious. Coastal homes being made unstable or partially collapsing into the ocean are a concern for the affected family and the broader community, and cost is a major factor here. Solutions to reduce the impact of coastal erosion include beach nourishment, the construction of seawalls, groins and offshore breakwaters, property acquisition and retreat. Solutions involving construction require significant investment of funds, both for the initial building work and ongoing maintenance. Construction solutions also have some other disadvantages. The case study I mentioned earlier of the makeshift seawall at Wamberal is a good example. It protected houses directly behind it, but not those at the either end of the seawall. This means remedial work is complex and various solutions may have to be combined, increasing costs. There's also the loss of local tourism, and some of the potential solutions, such as building seawalls and offshore breakwaters, can affect the characteristic of the beach and reduce surf waves. Not so ideal for the surfers. In terms of threats to the ecosystem, it can be argued that many of these threats occurred before the significant coastal erosion events took place. They date back to when buildings were established along the foredune. In cases of major coastal erosion, we do see habitat destruction. However, if human intervention hadn't occurred, it's likely we'd see waves washing over the foredune and sand accretion occurring in self-adjusting negative feedback loop outlined earlier. Several years ago, the New South Wales Government announced the commencement of the Coastal Management Framework. The CMF legislation includes the Coastal Management Act and State Environmental Planning Policy. It requires local councils to prepare coastal management programs. The New South Wales Government has made funds available to develop and implement these plans, which should include strategies to manage the risks to people, property and the environment. Despite this, there's still debate over who is responsible for coastal erosion and who should pay the costs, particularly for the protection of private property. Councils argue that the state government funding is insufficient. Affected residents say it's council's responsibility to protect them, but the wider community has raised concerns about footing the bill. Inconsistent planning decisions by council, state, government and the Land and Environment Court over several decades has exacerbated this tension. For example, one Central Coast resident wrote to their local newspaper this year asking why they, as a ratepayer, should have to contribute to the rectification of problems created by faulty decision making. As a contentious issue with decades of history, it's likely that this will only be solved by a roundtable meeting of stakeholders from across local and state government, as well as residential and environmental groups. This will allow them to discuss their various concerns and develop a suitable solution. Central Coast Council currently has the opportunity to facilitate this roundtable approach as part of the development of its coastal management plan. Presently, this offers the best chance for a unanimous and constructive way forward in managing the issue of coastal erosion. It does, however, rely on the Council taking advantage of the opportunity for a whole of community solution rather than taking a top-down approach.